Hello there, I'm Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostik80 from the Full Force podcast, and I'm looking at a very special top 10 of my favourite Cobra and assorted enemy characters that haven't seen the light of day in the modern era as yet. We still have Joe-Con exclusives and one more final FSS to go, so we could still see these awesome characters in the 25th and up styling. If you haven't seen my previous video of top 10 Joes, then go check that out as well, and feel free to tell me how bad my choices were. The list is specifically characters that haven't been done at all in the modern era yet, so there won't be variations of current modern era figures, like a version 2 Dr. Mindbender for example, who I want really bad. Now let's look at those bad to the bone mofos, shall we? So right in at the number 10 spot, we have a real oddball, or odd bat, Overkill. Now, I probably only want him because I was fully expecting to see the Bats leader included in the exclusive offerings of last year's Joe-Con. After all, we did get an ton of bats. Alas, this didn't happen, and it left me with an Overkill-shaped hole. Easy. In my heart. Now, when this guy dropped in 1992 in both the UK and US with the talking battle commanders, I nearly had a heart attack. I mean, look at that card. So vibrant and bright, and the figure was all kinds of crazy ham wrapped in an insanity sandwich of bonkers bread and topped off with a dollop of nuts mustard and a side of crackers. As ridiculous as he was also absolutely fantastic and made an awesome Super Bat battlefield commander. The bio card was great and explained that he would have been the next generation of bats but was too expensive to develop, so Cobra Commander equipped him with a voice box that made him loudly bellow demoralising commands during combat situations like bats attack, wipe out and destroy. One thing about the talking battle commanders that bugged me was the fact that the backpacks were all screwed onto the figures. This was always a confusing decision to me, as it hadn't been the case for the Sonic and Supersonic fighters. However, it's doubtful the same issue would occur with a modern version, as we wouldn't even get a soundbox to go with them, which would be totally amazing and should definitely happen, by the way. He also drives the Cobra Earthquake vehicle, as you can see on the box art. I would love him in the modern era, but it would have to be transparent coloured plastic all the way, or get the f*** out. A real underrated classic at 9, it's the Flak Viper. Hopefully I don't catch too much flack for having this guy at number 9, yeah? Yeah? Okay, I'll stop. Out of all the Vipers in this list, here's the one I could probably do without, but my word, what a great modern figure he could be. That huge anti-aircraft launcher on his back with the tallest missiles ever, the green and grey deco, and that awesome design with a helmet sci-fi would be proud of. They were basically tiny mobile battlefield delivery systems who could target enemy aircraft and wipe them off the face of the earth, if, of course, the aircraft hadn't wiped them out first. The bio gamified the troops by comparing their computer cartridge-based helmet targeting systems to long hours playing video games, and the US bio even threw in a reference to the Cobra Parasite, a technique employed by Hasbro to help sell the vehicles. Interestingly enough, the UK card said Cobra Army vehicles instead, mainly due to the fact that the Parasite didn't see a release in the UK. Incidentally, I didn't find this one when I was a kid, but I was still buying Joes up until 93 when the UK stopped getting any more product and I had started high school. Ugh. Look to the stars at 8. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. Next to the one you are looking at now. Yep, that one. It's Astro Viper. I think more for the amazing artwork on his card than the actual figure, but he's still a sought after troop builder, and I know you're all going to say we shouldn't have army builders in the FSS and so on, but it's not about that. This is a list of characters that haven't had the modern era treatment yet and need it. If he has to appear in the last FSS, I wouldn't be against that, but I do doubt that will happen based on the amount of other more likely candidates there are still yet to be modernised. Also, that incredible space backpack needs to be done right and would take up a lot of the tooling budget, not to mention a new helmet. I should also note that the card art showed the character with a red helmet and black visor, yet the figure ended up with a black helmet and a yellow visor. Interesting. To probably nobody else. Incidentally, the UK and US both got this guy in 1988 on their respective Action Force and G.I. Joe branded card backs, The more I look at him, the more I love the design, with the balaclava head, the gorgeous red, black, silver and gold deco, the exosuit accents on the sides of the legs, and of course the wonderful accessories for what effectively is a space technician for Cobra's old satellite technology. Another thing I loved about the bio was the fact that they were recruited from the Astro Vipers, who were used to pulling high Gs in their Night Ravens. Details like this make G.I. Joe such a hugely compelling and rich franchise that I love coming back to time and time again. At 7, and it's a representative of the beloved Iron Grenadiers faction, Targat, or Trans-Atmospheric Rapid Global Assault Trooper. What is my fascination with space, I hear you ask? Well, it's f***ing space. It's awesome. When this dropped in 1989 in the US, I was fortunate enough to be able to get one while on holiday that year, and it was glorious. The UK wouldn't see him released until 1991 on a G.I. Joe branded card, but by that time I'd already owned him for 2 years, and he was a real favourite. What I loved about the branding was the separation of sub-teams with very subtle changes to the card art design, like the different colour digital backgrounds and small additional logos for these factions. I believe this was my introduction into Destro's Iron Grenadiers, because we didn't get IG Destro and his troops until 1990, so this was a real what the f*** moment. The Iron Grenadiers were also still on shelves in the US, so I managed to grab one of those as well, and the realisation slowly dawned on me that there was a new team of bad guys in town and they weren't necessarily best of buds with Cobra. Around the same time, we were getting some real American hero stories in the Marvel UK comics, including a holiday special that focused on the Cobra Civil War arc, and lo and behold, there were the Iron Grenadiers led by Destro invading Cobra Island. The pieces began to fall into place, and now I had a new faction to collect into a small army. Coming back to Targat, obviously, there were a number of things that endeared me to this character. 1. The design and deco were next level. The black, blue and almost pink were a great combo, and I really liked how they were tied to the IGs with that sweet logo on the strap across the left shoulder. 2. The accessories. That rocket pack is incredible, with the retractable fins, black pipe tube gun attachment and insane detail. Even on the underside you don't get to see when he's wearing it. Even his other weapon has a wrist clamp attachment so he doesn't lose it when hurtling to Earth at 1 trillion miles an hour. Finally, in terms of accessories, that visor. I was a little confused at first as it looked nothing like the card art at all. I wondered for a long time whether I was using it correctly, but he actually looked even more bad in the toy version, so it was all good. 3. The card art and design itself. As I said before, the additional Iron Grenadiers logo, the change up in colours on the digital explosion background and the fabulous artwork. This was a pure win across the board. And 4. The bio. I would always read the bios in full and would cut out and keep them. I still have all my cards from my collection as a kid. This one was great. Deployed into battle from a shuttle in orbit, Targats would hurtle to Earth in groups, making it look like a meteor shower. The visual of that is crazy, and something that would strike fear in any defending force. Also f***ing bonkers. Get this figure done please. I need him. A rather divisive one at 6, the ruler of Cobra and with the voice of a legend, Globulus. It's fair to say that the Action Force movie, also released in other regions as G.I. Joe the movie, is a love it or hate it situation. I personally love it and still believe it is the best G.I. Joe movie ever made, with Street Fighter a close second. Now with that said, one of the main reasons for the division it has created in the fandom is down to the inclusion of Cobra La as the main antagonist and the almost retconning of this culture into the storyline as the reason for the birth of Cobra itself, as well as the creation of Serpentor. As a kid, I loved it. Action Force / G.I. Joe has always been known for its sci-fi elements, and I thought it added a really cool and interesting level to the overall brand at the time, and because the 1987 Cobra La 3-pack that was available in the US never came out in the UK, it made it even more tempting for me as a toy collector. I finally got my hands on a loose set and a carded example a few years ago, and it made me extremely happy. Even as an adult, my tastes have stayed the same. Now I'm not surprised Globulus hasn't been done. I mean, it would take some serious design chops, extensive tooling and resources only Hasbro could utilise to do the snake tail to a similar quality as, say, the Boss Fight Studio tail that is next level engineering. In terms of the FSS, it would be too much, and I totally understand that, but it doesn't change the fact that we have all but Globulus and my first honourable mention in the list, the Royal Guard, in the modern era so far. So with that, a Royal Guard would be much easier to pull off, but again, could use some new tooling to make him absolutely perfect. As is, I have to go with Globulus at 7 because I would love to have him standing side by side with Nemesis Immortal, Enforcer I know, and the best club figure ever made, Pythona. Halfway there at 5, it's my first Red Shadow related character, the Red Shadow. Now, I realise you all probably thought this guy was going to be higher up the list than here at 5, but there are a few more figures that just mean more to me than this generic troop builder. I for one would have loved a box set containing all the Red Shadows related characters with all their vehicles, but it was just a bit too much of a stretch to do right, and even though the popularity of Action Force has seen a huge rise in the US over the past few years, it still has a ways to go to win over a number of fans that clamoured for the Joe-Con box sets every year up until now. The FSS Action Force characters were great, but it amazes me we haven't seen modern Red Shadows or any related characters yet in a modern setting. Either way, this awesome character is aching to be modernised down to the ridiculous helmet and the World War II era German army uniform aesthetic. As an honourable mention here, I would like to throw in Red Wolf. Now, a modern version of this guy would be insane, but without a brand new updated Robo Skull to go with him, I don't think I could live with that. I just love my characters in bright colours and ridiculous helmets. At number 4, it's the Astro Viper. This figure evaded me as a nipper, but I wanted him so very badly, mainly for that sweet ride he rocked around the place, the Cobra bug. At the time I'd been going crazy for weird creature characters in glass domed helmets, like Krulos in Dino Riders, Slushhead in the New Adventures of He-Man, and even Mutagen Man from the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I believe it was referred to as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in some lesser known areas of the globe. So because of that, the Astro Viper stood out big time with his huge domed and quite honestly uncomfortable looking helmet and that bright yellow suit. We didn't get him in the UK until 91, a whopping 3 years after he came out in the States, and because of that he managed to pass me by. I'm also not surprised we haven't seen him as yet due to the amount of new tooling he would probably need and the fact that the bug has never been re-released as a club vehicle for obvious reasons. Once again I look at the bio and it's full of personality. Dedicated unit for patrolling the Cobra Island shoreline, hugely conscientious and will brown nose to superiors given any opportunity. Imagine this guy in a modern build. Incredible. As an honourable mention, I have thrown the Toxo Viper in here, and the only reason they don't make the list is down to the fact that the club did make the version 2 Toxo Viper for the Zombie Initiative box set in 2014, and as such has had a sort of representation in the modern era. That said, this is a bit of a grey area, so I figured the best idea was to go with the honourable mention here instead. Either way, let's see the Astro Viper please. You're more likely to find this guy in Clash of the Titans at number 3. I revisit the Red Shadows again with the Kraken. Now I love this guy because he just doesn't make any sense. His backstory, published in 1984 in Battle Action Force, codenamed Kraken, is just as insane as his look. Having been found by accident by Baron Ironblood, the Black Major, and some Red Shadows in the frozen wastes of the North Pole during a battle with the SAS, they fall into an underground cavern and come across the weird creature encased in ice. Knowing it's too dangerous to try and move him at that time, they escape the underground cavern and return with more resources in order to cut the Kraken out of his icy prison. Once back in the lab, they revive him and clone him to create a huge army of these creatures, and during a battle with Action Force, the majority are killed, and despite seeing a few get away, we never see them in the comics again. Even with their short lifespan, I would love to see them used in Larry's A Real American Hero comic at some point, seeing as he has used the majority of Red Shadow's characters so far in the run, but just imagine a modern version of this crazy figure. I would be so happy, but I feel as though it's unlikely we'll be getting one anytime soon. As an honourable mention, I have to talk about Skeletron. Whenever I mention Kraken, I feel as though Skeletron isn't far from my next thought. They are the odd couple, and I only went with Kraken over Skelly here because the creature from the deep is more substantial. Appearing out of the murky blue depths at number 2, it's Hydro Viper. Released in the US and the UK in 1988, this guy would be number 1 had it not been for the recent coverage my actual chart topper has had over the last year or so. But more on that later. Let's bask in the glory that is the Hydro Viper. I mean, look at that design, just incredible. The purple and red deco is just exceptional. The detail in that gorgeous Predator style helmet, the scaly torso, the fact he can sort of carry all of his stuff, the one hand that is open and webbed is brilliant. The scariest flippers ever made look like he murdered a dragon and chopped his trotters off with that lightning bolt knife. Literally everything about this guy is fire. If I were being picky though, I would say that a modern version would do well to have spare hands so you could have the best of both worlds, a sheath for the knife on his leg, and a spot on a newly tooled oxygen pack that could purposely hold the harpoon weapon so that he could comfortably contain those cool accessories. That said, I think a lot of new tooling would be required to get the best possible rendition here, and that would be fine in say another anniversary line a few years down the road. I could have seen this guy in the 50th as a figure that had the main focus of the budget with a number of re-releases around him. I love the fact the helmet is removable also, with a really different and cool way of doing a masked generic head underneath. Another few things that need to be mentioned. He comes with a frickin' manta ray. This was one of my favourite animal characters that came out in the line because it was softer and made from a more flexible plastic than a lot of the other animals. Not just that, but let's enjoy that card art for a second. Wow. Terrifying, and rightly so. The art captures the essence of the character laid out in both his Action Force and G.I. Joe bios that explain that the Hydro Vipers, or Demons of the Deep, are fully qualified Cobra eels that volunteer to be surgically enhanced to withstand effects of nitrogen narcosis and other side effects of deep diving. They have their hands webbed and chemical injections to stimulate subcutaneous fat production for insulation. Wow. I vividly remember getting this guy from Roy's of Wroxham, a town literally converted into a huge shopping centre in Norfolk. I was instantly drawn to him, and those were the days when you could get these figures as a gift on a day out because they were such a good price point. Something that couldn't be said for a modern version of this guy, but that's life, isn't it? I will always remember using the Hydro Viper as the Predator with some select Joes operating as the rest of the cast. The fact you could recreate the scene when he takes his mask off using the tubes that connect to his oxygen pack made it that much more fun. A solid 2, but is basically up alongside my actual number 1 for anticipated modern figures. I love you, my Demon of the Deep. Congratulations, you're not asleep, or you high-speed buffered your way here. Anyway, it's a quick rundown of 10 through 2. At 10, it's the leader of one of the biggest unknown sub-teams in Cobra, the Battle Android Troopers head honcho, Overkill. At number 9, he won't be getting through many doors with those stonking great missiles sticking out of him, it's the Flak Viper. Number 8, he's out of this world, Astro Viper. At 7, and hurtling to Earth faster than a speeding meteor, and soon to be a meteorite, it's Destro's own Trans-Atmospheric Rapid Global Assault Trooper. At 6, we haven't seen a leader this divisive since, well, now. It's the ruler of Cobra La, Globulus. At 5, unless I've been reading it wrong for the past 36 years, these guys pledge their allegiance to Karen, whoever she is. It's the Red Shadows. Don't bug me about having this guy at 4, it's the Secto Viper. At number 3, it's not broken, it just has a Kraken. Wetter than an otter's pocket at number 2, it's the underwater predator, Hydro Viper. Which means at number 1, we have Baron Ironblood. Oh, Baron, not Karen, I see. If ever there was a villain that needed a massive modern update, it's this guy. Leader of the Red Shadows, the evil faction that battle Action Force in the early UK comics, the Baron only ever had the one figure with a black glove variant, although if you follow the UK comic canon, then he's had over 60 due to the fact that the Baron became Cobra Commander in the story World Enemy No. 1. After a number of large terrorist attacks by the Red Shadows, the Baron becomes World Enemy No. 1, as the title suggests. Action Force start to gain the upper hand in taking out Red Shadow strongholds all over the globe, but the Baron retreats to a secret location where he has specialist surgery to change his appearance and injections to make him immune to Cobra venom, thusly becoming Cobra Commander, obviously, and so beginning the changeover to Action Force vs Cobra in 1985. The Baron's action figure dropped in 1983 and despite being a really cool design, was hampered by the 5 points of articulation considering the fact that G.I. Joe had just been released the year prior in the US and featured far more range in terms of movement, thanks to some inspired design and tooling elements. The helmet was also an odd choice, on the toy being a wraparound flexible plastic piece that formed the coal bucket, as it has been referred to, on his pretty awesome head sculpt. I love the fact you could see the Baron's face, something that G.I. Joe has been really amazing at hiding in their canon, with Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, Firefly and so on. That mystery does make it more intriguing, but sometimes you just want to put a face to a bad guy, and that's what we got with Ironblood. The white hair and black goatee gave him a Sean Connery and Highlander vibe, which actually came out in '86, so it certainly wasn't inspired by him at all, so maybe 5 days, 1 summer. Anyway, the mainly stark white get-up with the striking black and red V-cut down the front was really effective, but the boiler suit with skirt and work boots didn't necessarily give off the leader vibe like, say, a ceremonial Cobra Commander or Serpentor does. Either way, his modern iteration, most recently in the IDW crossover events Revolution, Revolutionaries and First Strike, have upgraded the Red Shadow's leader in the most badass of ways. He looks quite incredible in his new, more practical costume and has made for a really awesome plot point in the comics. Spoiler alert! When he was revealed to be Joe Colton, the original G.I. Joe. I was so annoyed that IDW messed up the reveal of this major plot point when the release of the comics around that time went out of sync, ruining the entire reveal completely. That aside, the Baron as an action figure would be absolutely outstanding in this new design, and I still have my fingers permanently crossed for a First Strike follow-up to that amazing San Diego Comic-Con Revolution box set we got last year. If we get this guy in some way before the club ceases to operate, or even in a con-exclusive format, I will be very happy, but it's not about me, so blood for the Karen. That's it then, my all-time top 10 Cobra and affiliated factions that haven't made it to the modern party yet. Of course, my list will look drastically different to all of yours, and that is why I fully expect you all to put your own top 10s in the comment section below, wherever you see this video posted. Thanks for watching, look out for more of these videos coming soon. I have been Diagnostik80, and you have been asleep for at least 25 minutes. Full force.